Late to the party, but MOMO XENOSAGA is real, or imaginary. Short video, but what could this new Blade quest entail? Welcome! We got that Xenoblade 2 Switch 2 Edition trailer at last! New outfits, new mode, weird upscaling, and most importantly, new Blade, inspired by Momo's Xenosaga's Episode 1 outfit, along with Bunny or Ukun, the two-faced UMN mascot. Everyone has already spoken about all the neat references here, so I won't go into much detail, but rather play with the idea of what her quest could mean for Xenoblade 2 and the overall Xenoblade narrative. We'll explore different paths or characters that I think could have important role, interactions or thematic parallels with Momo in her quest. Kos-mos, Pyra, Poppy and Lyn. Kos-mos as Xenosaga mates, and per the voice actress leak, maybe the new voice lines are not just for the Merc battles, but also her side quest? As discussed in the VC, that will mean you need to farm for Kos-mos for her mission. Regardless, maybe Kos-mos has lines here. As for what it could be about, I'm thinking it could tie back to the World Tree and Saviorites, Klaus' world lore. You see, it all goes back to Vector, the brand of the infamous radio scene, now visible in Momo and shown in Kos-mos Awakening Pod and Telos Gun and Shoes. Along that, consider the fact that core crystals were not a Klaus invention. It was originally made in his world as a replacement for human brain cells, a means to achieve immortality. Vector is a major tech manufacturer and research company that is everywhere and behind most things, including the UMN and the Realians, so kinda indirectly funding Momo. Wouldn't surprise me if they were the ones funding Aoidos, the academic institution now in charge of studying the conduit. 3 orbital elevators were made to safely study the conduit in space, to prevent damage on Earth. The Earth Coalition government was divided in 13 authorities, with the orbital elevator stations receiving the names of the authorities where they were built on. Radamanthus would later become the World Tree. How do you pronounce it? Aikus, and Minos, to which Future Redeem added that Dmitry Yuriev was the representative. Kos-mos told the party how the orbital elevator was made in great detail, but upon being asked how she knew, she says that data exists independent from her memories and cannot be lost whenever she returns to her core crystal, saying that just as blades remember their names, this data seems to always be within her, not knowing why, how or who implanted said information. Reminds me of Klaus transferring all of Elysium's data to Numa, or Momo herself storing the Y data inside. Important for the story. Could the quest be related to this? All merely speculation, of course. Now, Pyra, as both had important data stored within, that a monochromatic maniac tried to steal, as well as both being some sort of construct made to live someone else's life, yet develop into their own person, with their parents accepting their new being. So, some thematic parallels, as well as the ability to transform into 2 forms, with different elements and personalities. There could be also some Poppy involvement, as similarly she is the robot kid archetype, who also transforms into different forms, and lots of Poppy dialogue were about her nature as an artificial blade, and if she will ever be able to become a real one. Also, both have some sort of magical girl moment, so they could bond. Not Lyn per se, but thematic parallels as well. Lyn was a bit like Xenoblade cross Momo, as in the tech-savvy kid with big eyes. Lyn was conceptualized to have Ukun, or Bunny as well. And, now this is a recent addition to the script, but it was now revealed that Momo's quest will be called Home of the Soul. There could be more parallels to Lyn's speech. As Lyn said, "The spirit isn't something one human body can contain. and it's not part of the consciousness packed inside a mimosome either. Other people can reflect someone's way of thinking, even their way of being, which means that a person's spirit can exist in every other person whose life they touch. Sounds very much like what blades are in Xenoblade 2, and Momo could ponder on that, about the blade's nature, bonding with their driver's soul, becoming one. And, big thought, schizo theory, maybe where blade souls come from. They say blades have souls. Are they produced in the spot? Or come from somewhere else? The blade system needs Logos and Pneuma after all. What if, upon awakening for the first time, the cores are granted a soul from the rift between worlds, thanks to the Trinity? There were discarded similar ideas about realliance in Saga. Maybe we could be going back to that? And we know from Xenoblade Cross and Xenoblade 3 about souls in the rift and vessels. For some reason, part of the fandom is still debating she is the very same Momo as a guest or a Momo reimagining. I lean towards the latter, no signs that this will be a Land of Challenge Blade, like Shulk, Fiora or Elma. So rather a reimagined Momo, recontextualized or adapt to Earth and Alrest lore, as Momo in Xenosaga was made more than 4,400 years after Earth was lost. She wasn't a blade, but rather a prototype of the 100 series Realian. They could play into the similarities, but no, I don't think they'll be the same. People are still too focused on the future of the series depending on Xenosaga or Xenoblade Cross references in Future Redeem. Seeing the crashed spaceship in Anshar gives me hope of the Icarus route. That's not saying I don't think those two won't be relevant. But how I see it, and I imagine it, is that Xenoblade Cross is in the very far future. We still have to see the birth of the Samar Federation. And as for Xenosaga, my wish has been for a reimagining of that story, but set on Earth and the authorities rather than space colonies, making Xenoblade 2 kos-mos canon. She was already contextualized and fits the Alrest lore, with Vector and now Dmitry Yuriev as the Minus representative. And her texture and lore says she was made by a Shion and Allen in Klaus' Earth as well. Maybe they hid that data, or another Kevin. So I imagine her and now Momo as parts of Klaus' Earth Vector and Aoidus, built as proto-blades of sorts, experimenting with the core crystal tech that preceded Klaus, which he later would plagiarize to make blades. Maybe links to the Saviorites or Realian's equivalent in that world, the whole human rights thing, with kos-mos dying in a last stand against Saviorite rebels and returning to her core crystal. For Momo, I don't know yet, but I wonder if she too will have stored data that doesn't go away if she returns to her core. More importantly, if we follow a similar story to her Saga version, who will be the faction chasing her? Who would want old Earth data if that was there? Indol? Judicium lore? Or, as the plot of Xenoblade 2 was already about Pyra being chased like her, maybe they won't do that now, but rather her wanting to find out who she truly is and seeking Vector stuff? Who knows? We'll get an answer in 4 days regardless. What do you think? Anyways, that would be it for today. Have a good one.